Hey guys, what's going on? I got a couple cool beadlocks here. If you guys are following Project 250R, these are the wheels and tires that are going to be going on that project, and these are the beadlocks that came off of the Yamaha Banshee for our top speed run. So I'm going to do a quick little comparison here and show you how these things came out of the box because they are top notch. Welcome back, guys. God damn it. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't going to film this, but I unboxed these things and it was a pretty nice experience, I'm not gonna lie. These things are just packaged so well by OMF. They go to pretty extensive measures to make sure that these wheels don't get scratched up during the shipping process, and rightfully so, because this is an expensive wheel setup. So while I couldn't help myself and I did mount the one tire on my own, I did rebox this other rim just so I can show you how it came out of the package. Before I even get into that, for those of you that don't know, basically the purpose of a beadlock wheel is to keep the bead of keep the wheel and the tire moving together, especially at low pressures. And essentially how a tire works is usually air pressure cakes the wall of the tire up against the bead of the rim, and that friction keeps the tire and the wheel spinning at the same time. But it's really popular in off-road applications, especially to use beadlock wheels, because a lot of times guys like to run really low pressures, 4 to 6 PSI. And when you get down to those low pressures, you're not putting the force up against the bead of the rim, and your tire can actually fall off of the bead, or the tire can spin on the bead, and that's just bad news. So a beadlock wheel has this beadlock ring with bolts in it, and that essentially cakes the bead of the tire and clamps it in place, keeps it from spinning even at low pressures. So it's also got a trick look, and if you look at this side, I have the inner, it's called reinforcement ring. Some people call them Baja rings, but that's gonna help strengthen up the wheel, and it definitely gives it a trick look too. And what's really cool about these OMF wheels is they're probably one of, if not the most customizable wheels that you can possibly buy for your quad, side-by-side, or truck for that matter. You can get, polished wheels with a different color beadlock ring. You can get all kinds of stuff. I mean, they actually have billet center pieces that fold up to your hubs, and that's like taking it to the next step. I didn't do that because I thought that would be a little bit too flashy for this build, which is kind of why I went with the flat black look. But you can really do some tricked out stuff. And the other thing you can do on this ring, if you notice, there's these slots, and that's called the drain lock. So if you've had beadlock wheels before, when you wash them or you get water in the bead, water just kind of pools down here in the rim, and it's like impossible to get out unless you blow it out with air for like 10 minutes, or you get a rag and kick it down there. It's like there's always just seems to be water down in that bead. So the whole idea of these slots, one is it reduces a little bit of weight, and also it allows the water to drain out of the bead. So once I open up this box, I'm also going to show you how to mount one of these wheels onto these rims. There actually is a process that you're supposed to go through, and I did want to show you also on these beadlocks that we used on the Banshee. If you guys followed the Banshee series, I was doing top speed runs, and I was unable to complete the top speed runs because when you would get to 70 or 80 miles an hour, the quad was starting to hop around really bad. And that's because these tires are not centered on the bead of these beadlocks. And I don't have too much experience with beadlocks, but I have used quite a few sets, and I've noticed some differences. But these were probably the two biggest differences that I noticed. And this is also my very first set of OMFs. These are a pretty pricey tire. I usually never afford them before, so it's really cool to run them. But there's a reason why they're so much more expensive, and I want to show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off this bead, and I'm going to show you on the bead in here before we mount the MXR6 tire on it, the differences between the two beadlocks. And I'm not bashing this wheel, nothing to do with the tire. The wheel, the difference in price, I think this wheel was $55 shipped brand new, as opposed to around $200 to $250 per wheel shipped, which is a huge difference. So I can't really bash this wheel because it's so cheap, but I want to show you the differences and why this one is so much better. All right, so let's get down to it. Obviously, I already opened this box. I couldn't help myself, guys. You can see the OMF sticker on here, and these are Douglas wheels, so they're actually modified at OMF. They put these beadlocks on and that inner reinforcing ring, and really, they totally changed the wheel. So yeah, that's why it says DWT on the side. It actually is a Douglas wheel. So this, you open up the box, everything is just the way it was when I opened it up. You have this nice layer of foam. Pull this wheel out. And you can see they put bonnets on here, man. Like hair nets, lunch lady nets. And they have the shrink wrap on both sides. They really take some extra measure to make sure these things don't get scratched. And then inside, this was actually zip tied on the inside, and I cut the zip tie off. But you have a little instruction sheet in here that tells you the exact torque specifications, depending on what size rim you have and everything. I'll show you that sheet in a second. There's a couple brochures in there, and of course the OMF sticker, baby. So we'll go ahead and peel off the shrink wrap. Ooh, man, is that nice. That is a pretty beadlock. And this is in flat black. I'll tell you what, when you get these things blinged out with a polished rim, like a candy apple or candy blue lip, man, do these things look nice. It was almost a sin to order these things in all flat black because I'm a huge fan of contrast. But I just felt like this was the way to go for this build, and I do think it's gonna look sick. I'm really happy with it. And it definitely looks cool with these gold grade 8 bolts. It's a nice offset with the black rim. I'm gonna go ahead and remove all these bolts. So there's our beadlock ring. And take note, this is a big difference between this wheel and that other wheel. You see these ribs in here? They're on the face of the rim too. Those are gonna help keep grip of your bead when they're clamped down. Now I'm gonna pull off the other beadlock and I will show you that bead so you can give a comparison. God, this tire's huge. Now before I take this off, take note, I know you guys aren't directly over top of this. If I put you like this, there's a line that goes around this tire, and that's basically what I used to line up this rim and make sure that it was in the center, but I was just eyeing it up. So I'm gonna pull off this bead and I'm gonna show you what's inside. All right, so you can see on the inside of this beadlock, there's no ribs, it's just smooth aluminum. Now, all the other beadlocks that I've run, even DWT beadlocks, they've been smooth also. So I can't really knock the wheel for that. And as far as I know, this wheel was not slipping on the bead. However, that extra step that OMF takes to have that ribbed edge, this beadlock is definitely gonna grip better than this one. So that's a huge difference right there, but that's not the biggest thing that I noticed. All right, guys, I'm gonna do my best to get everything in the frame here, but this tire is so damn big. So I'll point it out on the OMF wheel first. So if you look at the face here, you see this lip that goes all the way around? The tire is going to sit, this lip of the tire here is gonna sit right up against this lip. So basically, it makes it so that you can't put the tire on off center. That lip is gonna keep the tire nice and centered up. Now on this one, I'm not gonna pull this tire off because I don't feel like breaking the bead on the other side. Let's see if we can, all right, you can break it free. But you look, you can see the face of that rim. It's smooth. There's no lip or anything to decipher that the tire is centered on the rim. And I think that is precisely the problem that we had with this tire when we were trying to do the top speed on the Banshee. Even if it's just slightly off, you're gonna feel it. Now, in most applications on ATVs, it's not gonna be a problem because realistically, you're not gonna be going 60, 70, 80, 90 miles per hour on a quad. For this, we were trying to break 100 miles per hour if you guys haven't seen the series. And it just that being slightly off messed it up, and it was making the back of the quad hop up and down really like crazy. So that's a major difference on these rims. It would be really nice if this had like a raised lip or something so that we could set this nice and even. Really, the only way that you can make this centered is by eye, and here's the issue. It may be like not that difficult to eye it up, But when you put this bead on and you start tightening down this side, it squeezes the tire and pushes it one way. And then you start tightening down here, it wants to squeeze it one way. It's more difficult to keep it perfectly in the center than you think. And like I said, most of the time, it's really not gonna matter. But in this case, it did make a difference because we were doing the speed racer tires and trying to do high speed on a smooth surface. If you're on the dirt, you're not gonna feel it. But I did wanna mention that. That's definitely a huge difference and definitely shows some extra quality in the OMF. One other notable difference, on the cheaper beadlock wheel, they use these backing plates. So these go up under the rim and then your bolts come through and essentially it's like a nut. And not that that's a bad system, that's the same system that the DWT wheels use, at least the ones that I had, the old school ones. So I can't really knock that. However, the OMF has integrated threads, so it's a little bit easier and a little bit quicker to adjust and play around with your beadlock. I'm sorry guys, but I gotta try this. I gotta see what it looks like. I don't know, that looks pretty fresh. Oh man, maybe I should have gone with the polished wheels and the black lip. I don't know. Might as well see what this looks like too. That looks pretty cool too, especially if it had that OMF shape. I did consider gold. I did consider it, but I went with black on black. All right, now I'm going to quick throw this bead back on and hopefully I'll be able to get this thing lined back up. And then once I have this on, I'm going to throw the tire on this OMF and I'll show you how to tighten down that bead properly. Now before I tighten these down, and this impact wrench only goes to about 4 pounds of pressure, 4 foot-pounds when it's on number 1, so this is perfect. But when I tighten down, I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see it or not, but it does squeeze the wheel out a little bit and it kind of makes it off center. So you really gotta be careful with like your crisscross pattern with this one. And I did wanna make mention, this outer lip does have a groove in it that's supposed to center up the tire, but it just doesn't work very well. So let's give it a shot. I don't know if you saw it squeeze the tire out just a little bit. All right, now before we get started mounting this tire, the tools we're gonna need are a torque wrench. I'm not gonna say that it's 100% necessary to have a torque wrench because I know there's guys out there that have done it without one. As most of us guys know, and I've been flamed for this a million times, we don't like reading directions. So don't worry, I got your back. I'm gonna show you how to do it. You don't even have to read the directions. So here's the new welder. So what I'm gonna be doing is welding these tabs back on.